Hi, I'm Harriet, the Bespoke Jeweller, and I'm here to talk to you about cleaning your engagement ring. We've had quite a few people asking us about what to do to keep their rings clean during this coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, and it is really important to think about. We're obviously all washing our hands loads for 20 to 30 seconds. Some people take their rings off when they wash their hands and put them back on, which mean that obviously that ring can carry some germs. And also, what if you don't take your ring off? How's it going to look? Because the soap buildup can make it a bit dingy, and also we're all using a lot of hand cream. So how can we also keep our jewellery sparkly and safe throughout all of this? So what I'm going to show you is what you can do very easily at home using stuff you're already going to have. You don't need to be an expert. It will work for diamond rings, ruby rings, sapphire rings, hard gemstone rings. That would include aquamarine, garnet, amethyst. Don't use this for emerald. Don't use this for opal, amber, pearl, tanzanite. So, and if I haven't said the ring that, the stone that you've got in your ring there, do ask your jewellers before you do this, because some stones are very sensitive to water and don't like it. So if you do have a hard gemstone ring, like a diamond ring, it's absolutely fine to be wearing it whilst you're washing your hands, unless it's extremely delicate and your jeweller has told you not to. I would say if you're going to wash your hands with your ring on, do make sure that you're always giving it a good regular check over, that everything's tight and nothing's loose, because the obvious risk is that if one of your stones is loose and you're washing your hands, it could obviously dislodge and go down the sink, which we don't want to happen. So do be careful that you only do this with rings that you're sure are sound with no loose stones. So the first thing you need is a bowl. I use a couple of bowls and some water. The reason I use the bowl rather than the sink is because, sinks are often made of very hard stuff. If you do drop your ring, that can damage it, can dent the metalwork. And also, if you do use a sink for some reason, just for goodness sake, make sure the plug is in. You don't want to lose anything. And then we're going to use detergent, just any washing up liquid. I use Fairy, it doesn't matter which one you use. We're also going to use a very soft brush. I like to use a sable paintbrush or a cosmetics brush, like a makeup brush. An old mascara brush works well. I sometimes use a very, very soft toothbrush, like a baby's toothbrush. This is a extremely soft nylon bristled one. Please don't use an ordinary adult toothbrush. There's lots of clips on YouTube telling you it's fine and that rings are really robust. That's not the case in my experience. The very tough bristles in an adult toothbrush can very easily dislodge a stone from the back, and also can scratch the metal. So if you're going to use one of these, use an extremely soft one that's made for a baby. Right, so I like to use a makeup brush. It's a nice soft one. Again, don't use any paint brushes with really rough bristles. And I'm going to show you what I do. So if your ring is really mucky and you haven't washed it for a while, then it's an idea to, first of all, soak it. So you just use some water, a good squeeze of, that's a technical term, of detergent, and then drop your ring. This one's actually not been washed for a while. Drop your ring in there and just leave it to soak for an hour, half an hour, whatever you think, before you do this, and that will just help to dislodge anything. But mostly, I wash my rings every week and they don't really need a soak first, unless I've been doing something really, really mucky, got paint on it or something, when I've been using watercolours. So what you do, the first thing to do is, as I say, look over your ring very carefully. Look at it with your fingers, if you know what I mean. Just make sure that nothing's moving and that you can't see any of the stones moving. If you do see any movement, take it to your jeweller and make sure that everything's safe before you go any further, and don't wash it if you see anything's loose. Right, so what I'm going to do first of all to wash the ring is I'm going to wet the ring, and then I'm going to take my brush and wet the brush, and then I'm going to use pretty much neat detergent here on the brush, and then I'm going to bubble that in, and I'm going to start with the sides of the stones, and I'm going to bubble that, make a nice foam all around the sides of the stones, make sure I've really got into every crevice there. Similarly on the surface of the stones, I'm going to go over. I'm not pushing like super hard, I'm just letting the detergent get to everything. Well, it's the water, isn't it, that's really going to do the cleaning. The detergent's a wetting agent helping that happen. So then we give it a good bubble. I'll just give it a rinse. This is just plain water. I've just used ordinary tap water in both of these bowls. I've got it at sort of hand heat because I find it more comfortable, but you can do it cold if you prefer. Don't use boiling water because that might be a bit uncomfortable. And then very importantly, I'm now going to bubble in behind the stones. Now, if you've got a good quality piece of jewellery, all of the stone backs should have been left open by your jeweller. And the reason is for cleaning, especially for stones that aren't diamonds. The total internal reflection of the stone is sort of compromised when there's a hand cream or whatever on the stones. And so we leave the backs open so that everybody can clean the facets and so that they sparkle better. So what I'm doing there is I'm just going along. I'm not pushing in really hard. That might dislodge a stone. I'm just going in with the brush, just wiggling it about a bit, making sure that all of those stone backs are really nice and bright. So once I feel I've done that, I'm also going to do the metal work. Now, while we're talking about metal, I should also tell you that you should use this for any precious metal. So you can use it for silver, for gold, for platinum, for palladium. I would say don't use it for metal that isn't precious because I'm not really sure how the water's going to react with that depending on what it is. So this is for precious metal rings like your engagement ring. Then I'm just going to rinse it in the water. And then we go, and then I'm going to bring it up. Now I've got here a soft tissue, like a facial tissue, and that's what I'm going to use. I'll just blot it on the towel carefully to sort of blot the ring dry, like this. I'm not rubbing it with the tissue because the tissue is slightly abrasive and that might scratch the metal. I'm just blotting the wet out of it. And as you can see, it's a lot more sparkly than it was when I started. And then I'm going to use a lint-free cloth. I'm using one, when we sell jewellery, we give these to our customers. They're lint-free cloths that are impregnated with polish, which you can buy from places like Town Talk, or some supermarkets do them in Lakeland and places like that. If you don't have one, you can use a lint-free cloth, like a glasses cleaning cloth, but do make sure it's totally clean, because if it's been left out in the open, it's got a few pieces of grit on it, then that can scratch the metal. So always I always keep mine in the packet that it came in, and put it straight back in there when I've used it. So I'm just going to dry over the stones, and I'm also just going to rub over the metalwork there, which will actually shine it up a bit too. Make sure it's really nice and clean. Now, another question we've been asked is whether the hand sanitizing gel can damage jewellery. The answer is when it comes to, like I say, hard gemstone jewellery like diamonds, sapphires and rubies, it's absolutely fine. You can use that with your ring on. Obviously, you might get a bit of a slimy build-up on the ring and need to do this process every week as well. But that can work. You don't need to take those kinds of rings off. However, as I say, if you've got a very soft material or an organic material like a pearl, an opal, an emerald, definitely don't use hand sanitizer or soap on those, and don't use this process on those. I would advise during this outbreak to stop wearing rings like that and leave them in your jewelry box until it's all over. But yeah, that's what we do. You can do it as often as you like. You can do it many times a day. Be gentle, and like you've seen me do, you're not going to do your jewelry any harm. And hopefully it will just keep us all clean and safe and sparkly. Important.